Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to talk about how America and Iran became enemies and where Israel fits in. If you look at the headlines today, it feels like United States and Iran have always been enemies. It feels permanent, inevitable, almost natural. But the truth is, it wasn't always like this. In fact, there was a time when Iran was one of America's closest partners in the Middle East. There was a time when Israel and Iran quietly cooperated. There was a time when Washington saw Tehran as a pillar of stability. So, what happened? How did cooperation turn into hostility? How did distrust turn into decades of sanctions, proxy wars, nuclear crisis, and military confrontation? To understand that, we have to go back nearly a century. In the early 20th century, Iran was caught between imperial powers. Britain and Russia treated Iran like a chessboard. The United States at that time was not deeply involved. In fact, many Iranians viewed America as a distant power without colonial baggage. That perception would not last. After World War II, oil became the lifeblood of global power. Iran had enormous reserves. British company controlled much of Iran's oil industry, extracting profits while many Iranians remained poor. Resentment grew. In 1951, a democratically elected Iranian prime minister named Mohammad Mossadegh nationalized Iran's oil industry. His argument was simple: Iran's resources should benefit Iranians. But this decision threatened British economic interests and alarmed American policymakers who feared instability during the Cold War. The United States and British saw Mossadegh not just as a nationalist, but as a potential risk who might tilt toward Soviet influence. In 1953, the CIA and British intelligence launched Operation Ajax. It was a covert coup. Mossadegh was removed. Power was consolidated under the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who ruled with strong American backing. For Washington, this was strategic success. For many Iranians, it was humiliation. The memory of 1953 never disappeared in Iran. It became the foundation of suspicion. It became proof that America would interfere in Iranian democracy when its interests were threatened. The Shah's rule lasted decades. He modernized Iran rapidly. Infrastructure expanded. Western culture flowed in. Iran became a close US ally. American military equipment poured into Tehran. Iran became a pillar of US strategy in the region, especially after Britain withdrew from the Persian Gulf. But modernization came with repression. The Shah's secret police, SAVAK, silenced opposition brutally. Economic growth was uneven. Religious leaders resented Western cultural influence. Political freedoms were limited. By the 1970s, dissatisfaction had reached a boiling point. In 1979, everything changed. A revolution erupted. Millions protested. The Shah fled. A cleric who had been in exile returned to Iran, Ruhollah Khomeini. The Islamic Revolution replaced a pro-Western monarchy with an Islamic republic built explicitly in opposition to Western influence. The United States, once the Shah's protector, was now seen as the architect of Iran's suffering. Then came the moment that cemented hostility forever. Iranian students stormed into the US embassy in Tehran. 52 American diplomats were taken hostage for 444 days. The hostage crisis dominated American media. It humiliated Washington. Diplomatic ties were severed. Sanctions followed. In Iran, the embassy takeover was framed as resistance against American interference. In the United States, it was viewed as proof that Iran was radical and dangerous. Trust collapsed completely. From that moment, hostility became institutional. Iran's new leadership labeled America the Great Satan. The United States began treating Iran as a rogue state. When Iraq invaded Iran in 1980, launching the devastating Iran-Iraq War, Washington tilted toward Iraq. Though the US did not officially enter the war against Iran, it provided intelligence and indirect support to Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein. For Iran, this was reinforced the narrative. America would always oppose them. Meanwhile, another relationship transformed quietly. Iran and Israel. Before 1979, Iran and Israel had discreet cooperation. Both were non-Arab states surrounded by hostile neighbors. But after the revolution, Iran's leadership rejected Israel's legitimacy. Opposition to Israel became central to Iran's ideology. Tehran began supporting groups that opposed Israel military, including Hezbollah in Lebanon and later Hamas in Gaza. Israel saw this as an existential threat. Iranian leaders openly called for resistance against Israel. Israel responded with intelligence operations, targeted strikes aimed at limiting Iran's regional influence. Over decades, this evolved into what analysts call a shadow war. Covert operations, cyber attacks, assassinations of nuclear scientists, and proxy conflicts fought across Syria, Lebanon, and beyond. The nuclear issue became the next major flashpoint. Iran insisted its nuclear program was for peaceful energy. The United States and Israel suspected weapon ambitions. Israel, feeling directly threatened, lobbied heavily in Washington to prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear capable. The fear was simple. A hostile Iran with nuclear weapon would fundamentally alter the balance of power in the Middle East. In 2015, after years of negotiations, the United States under President Barack Obama and other world powers signed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action with Iran. The deal limited Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. For a brief moment, tensions eased, but Israel strongly opposed the agreement, arguing it did not go far enough to eliminate the threat. In 2018, under President Donald Trump, the United States withdrew from the nuclear deal and reimposed sanctions. Iran resumed aspects of its nuclear program. Tensions escalated again. Regional conflicts intensified. Israeli airstrikes on Iranian-linked targets in Syria increased. American sanctions crippled Iran's economy, but did not topple its government. This triangular dynamic, Iran, Israel, and the United States, become deeply intertwined. Israel views Iran as its most dangerous adversary. The United States view Israel as a critical strategic ally. America provides Israel with military aid, intelligence cooperation, and diplomatic support. Iran sees this alliance as a proof that Washington sides with its enemies. In Washington, Iran is seen as destabilizing the region through proxies and threatening allies. The hostility toward America and Iran is the result of decades of accumulated mistrust. It began with a coup in 1953. It hardened with revolution in 1979. It deepened through war, sanctions, proxy conflicts, and nuclear disputes. Israel entered the equation as both a regional rival of Iran and a close American ally, further complicating diplomacy. Understanding how America and Iran became enemies is not about choosing sides. It's about understanding power, memory, trauma, and geopolitics. It's about recognizing how past interventions shape present fears. It's about seeing how alliances influence policy. And it is about realizing that what feels permanent today was once unimaginable. So, what do you guys think about America and Iran's relationship? Thanks for watching.